War affects your daily expenses in ways you might not immediately notice. When conflicts disrupt global supply chains, the cost of fuel, food, and transportation often rises. Imported goods become more expensive due to trade restrictions and higher shipping costs. Even local markets feel the pressure as inflation increases and currencies fluctuate. Governments may also raise taxes or cut subsidies to manage war-related spending, further impacting household budgets. In short, wars happening far away can quietly but directly make everyday life more expensive for everyone. Today, we will talk about how war is impacting your daily expenses. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Introduction. The hidden cost of conflict in everyday life. Wars are often discussed in terms of politics, borders, and military strategy, but their effects extend far beyond the battlefield. One of the most immediate and personal impacts is on the cost of everyday living. Even if a conflict is happening in another region of the world, it can still influence how much you pay for food, fuel, electricity, housing, and transportation. This happens because the global economy is deeply interconnected. Energy markets, trade routes, and supply chains link countries together. When war disrupts any major link in this system, the effects ripple outward and eventually reach household budgets everywhere. Understanding these connections helps explain why inflation spikes, prices fluctuate unpredictably, and daily expenses often rise during periods of global conflict. 1. Rising fuel prices and transportation costs. One of the earliest and most noticeable effects of war is an increase in fuel prices. Conflicts in oil-producing regions or areas near key shipping routes can cause global uncertainty in energy markets. For example, when supply routes are threatened or production slows, oil prices often rise due to fear of shortages. Since fuel is essential for transportation, manufacturing, and electricity generation in many countries, this increase affects almost everything. When petrol and diesel become expensive, public transport fares rise, delivery costs increase, and airlines adjust ticket prices. Even goods transported by trucks, such as groceries and packaged products, become more expensive because companies pass on higher logistics costs to consumers. Over time, this creates a chain reaction where almost every product becomes slightly more expensive due to increased transportation expenses. 2. Food inflation and agricultural disruptions. War also significantly impacts food prices, especially when major agricultural producers are involved. If farmland is destroyed, labor forces are displaced, or exports are blocked due to sanctions or insecurity, global food supply decreases. Countries that depend on imports are especially affected. Staple foods such as wheat, rice, cooking oil, and corn can see sharp price increases. For instance, disruptions in major grain-producing regions can reduce global supply and cause shortages in importing countries. Fertilizer shortages, often caused by trade restrictions or factory shutdowns during conflict, further reduce agricultural productivity worldwide. As a result, farmers produce less, costs increase, and consumers ultimately pay more at grocery stores. Even local markets far from the conflict zone experience rising food inflation. 3. Energy market instability and utility bills beyond fuel. Wars also impact electricity and gas prices. Many countries rely on imported natural gas or oil to generate power. When conflicts disrupt supply chains or lead to sanctions on energy exporting countries, global energy prices become unstable. This instability is passed on to consumers through higher electricity bills and heating costs. Factories also face increased production costs, which again leads to higher prices for finished goods. In some cases, governments may attempt to subsidize energy costs, but this often leads to budget deficits, which can later result in tax increases or reduced public services. For households, this means paying more not only at the pump, but also every month in utility bills. 4. Currency fluctuations and imported goods. Wars often cause uncertainty in financial markets, leading to fluctuations in currency values. Investors tend to move money into safe assets like gold or stronger currencies, which can weaken currencies in developing or import-dependent countries. When a country's currency loses value, imported goods become more expensive. This includes electronics, clothing, medicine, machinery, and even raw materials used in local manufacturing. For example, if a currency weakens by 10 to 15%, imported goods can become significantly costlier almost overnight. Businesses that rely on imports must either absorb the loss or pass it on to consumers. In most cases, prices rise, affecting everyday shopping expenses. 5. Supply chain disruptions and product shortages. Modern economies rely heavily on global supply chains, where products are manufactured in multiple countries before reaching consumers. War can disrupt these chains by closing shipping routes, damaging infrastructure, or imposing trade restrictions. When supply chains break down, delays occur in production and distribution. This can lead to shortages of certain products, from automobile parts to basic household items. When supply decreases but demand remains stable, prices naturally increase. For example, if shipping routes become longer or more dangerous, transportation costs rise, and businesses adjust prices accordingly. These disruptions often take months or even years to stabilize, meaning consumers feel the impact for a long time. 6. Inflation and the rising cost of living. One of the most widespread effects of war is inflation, the general increase in prices across the economy. Inflation occurs when production costs rise due to fuel, energy, and supply chain disruptions. Governments may also print more money to support war-related spending, which can further devalue currency. As inflation increases, the purchasing power of money decreases. This means that the same amount of income buys fewer goods and services than before. Salaries often fail to keep up with rising prices, creating financial pressure on households. Rent, groceries, healthcare, and transportation all become more expensive, making it harder for families to maintain their standard of living. 7. Government spending, taxes, and public services wars require massive government spending on defense, military logistics, and security operations. To fund these expenses, governments may increase taxes, borrow money, or reduce spending in other areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. When taxes rise, households have less disposable income, which directly affects daily spending habits. At the same time, reduced public services can increase private costs. For example, if healthcare support decreases, individuals may need to pay more out of pocket. 8. Long-term economic uncertainty and household behavior. Beyond immediate price increases, war creates long-term uncertainty in the economy. Businesses become cautious about investment, job creation slows, and markets become volatile. This uncertainty affects employment opportunities and wage growth, limiting household income growth while expenses continue to rise. Families often respond by changing spending behavior, cutting non-essential purchases, delaying investments, or saving more as a precaution. This shift in consumer behavior can slow economic growth further, creating a cycle of reduced demand and financial pressure. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.